afternoon, everybody. It's the Cryptid Huntress. I'm Jessica Jones. Welcome into a glitch in the Matrix, where every day is a little glitchy over here, but we get through it and we have a really good time doing it. Welcome in, y'all. I see everybody in that chat. You guys are awesome. Thank y'all so much for being here. All my moderators that are in here already. Y'all make my day every single show that we have here. Well, today we are going to be talking about one of my favorites, okay, with one of my favorite people, actually. We're going to be talking about the Alabama White Thang today. You got to say it with that twang when you're from the South. Alabama White Thang. And I have my good friend, Glen Jackson, here in the studio today. Glen is one of my teammates, actually. We are on all the same teams together for the most part. And we've been doing research together for a very long time. And by very long, I mean since about 2011 or so. We've been in the trenches together out there chasing cryptids, particularly Bigfoot. And Glen has had his own personal experience, his personal encounter with the Alabama White Thang and many more cryptids, even the Mount Vernon Monster as well. Okay, so that is probably what got him interested in Bigfoot to begin with. We're going to talk about it today because when he was a kid, he did have an interesting encounter up in Virginia, the DC area. All right. Well, if you guys want to follow along with all of my shows, go to my website, please, and keep up with the Cryptid Huntress over there. It's thecryptidhuntress.com. That's where you can find all of my shows and more. Okay. And also, I do have a Patreon if you'd like to support the show. In my work, it's the Cryptid Huntress on patreon.com there. And also I have a shop. It's called War Woman Goods. That's over on Etsy. Shout out to all the people who've been buying my jewelry and my goods. Thank y'all so much for all of your support. And also another quick line item of business here. I am offering discounted card readings. Okay. I do intuitive card readings this week only. And thank you so much to the people who have already signed up for those. I only have a limited space of those, but I'm offering those. You can go on my website to find out what they are. Go to the shop section, but you have to send me an email for the discount. Okay, so I'm offering discounts on all my readings this week. All right. Okay, y'all. Well, also, I do have some events that I did want to you guys to put on your calendars. If you are in the West Georgia area, East Alabama area, or actually Midwest Georgia area, I will be speaking at the Molina Bigfoot Festival. That's coming up November the 9th. Look at that lineup of people right there, y'all. Y'all see Matthew Delph will be there, Flat Rock Wood Boogers will be there, Tyler, Dr. Stamey, and the print is so little I can't see. Those are my guys that I go out Bigfooting with right there. And there's some other wonderful gentlemen there who are boots on the ground field researchers. They're going to be speaking at that event. It's going to be awesome. Okay. So that's one of the best small town Bigfoot festivals in the South. You heard it from the Cryptid Huntress. So y'all come see us there at that event. And also I will be speaking at the East Alabama Bigfoot Town Hall. That's going to be in January 18th with some of the same faces there. We got Tyler and Flat Rock, and Stacy Brown and MK Davis and Dale Boswell will all be there. And Bobby Dizzle, okay, is going to be broadcasting his podcast from there as well. And I know Bob, he comes out with their team sometimes. And so that's going to be a really good time as well. All right. Okay. Well, let's get into our show today because I am super excited to have my buddy Glen Jackson here in the studio. Let me go over what the Alabama White Thang is for you guys who aren't familiar. The Alabama White Thang is a large, hulking Bigfoot-type creature that has been reported throughout Alabama since the early 1900s. Residents describe it as being around 7 to 8 feet tall, monstrous-looking with white, long hair, and possibly being like a potential Bigfoot. Now, some reports say that it actually looks more like a lion. Some say it looks like a giant sloth. Okay, well, we're going to hear from Glen today because Glen believes he has had an encounter with this Alabama Bigfoot. And so Glen is joining us today. He had an encounter in the deep woods of Alabama, and he is a Bigfoot field researcher based out of Georgia. He's done extensive research across the Southeast U.S., and he began his search for Bigfoot, I guess, in Northern Virginia, outside of Washington, D.C. He'd heard of the Mount Vernon Monster, which made its appearance in Northern Virginia suburbs, and it made its appearance around military bases as well. Let's see, his passion for research is carried into his professional career. He's a critical care paramedic, certified firefighter, and hazardous materials technician. He's also an instructor of emergency medicine. He's finishing his degree and working on a book in an attempt to bring his career and cryptid research together. He's the host of a podcast, and he also has a radio show on the Thin Blue Line radio station. And we've got him here today. Please help me welcome to the show my good friend, Glen Sportcat Jackson.
I'm nervous after all of that.
Don't be nervous, Glen. You got this. You're on air as much as I am, or more. Okay.
Seems like it, yeah.
Yeah. How have you been?
I've been pretty good. How about you?
I've been great. I got to see you this past weekend, so that made my week.
I got my hugs in, yes, so it made mine too. So.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Glen, you and I go way back, and we've been doing Bigfooting together since at least 2011, 2012.
At least, yeah.
Yeah, at least. And we've had some fun experiences out in the woods and had a lot of Bigfoot activity. But you started off a little earlier than me. When you were a kid, you potentially had some experiences up at Mount Vernon. Am I right?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I grew up just outside of Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia suburb, Mount Vernon, in Alexandria, Virginia. And they had always been talking about, and, we took it to heart that, it was just they're making fun of, or not making fun, but they're trying to keep the kids out of the woods from getting in trouble, especially around a military base. And there was this talk about a Mount Vernon monster. Don't go out in the woods. Well, as kids are, we didn't listen. And it was, we saw things and didn't think about things. We always thought, oh, it's a homeless people in the woods or whatever. And then one night we had an experience that kind of changed our opinion on that. This thing stood up by a pond and was easily taller than, we were kids. I say we were kids. We were probably teenagers. And it was huge. We were like, okay, time to de-ass the woods. I shouldn't say unfortunately. The thing chased us, paralleled us in the woods. We got out into the open where we could run faster. I was always the slow, fat old one. And so, but this thing jumped over a fence that was easily at least 8 feet tall, maybe a little taller. And it actually flipped over it. It grabbed the top of the barbed wire. It was the old colonial style fence where they had the stone fence. Well, they had put a small chain link fence with barbed wire over it. It grabbed the top of the barbed wire and flipped itself over it and ran to the other side. And I'm assuming it's what it did on the other side. But when it landed in the little swampy, marshy area, it stared at us and growled. And the two things I recall most as a kid about that was it had the prettiest white teeth I had ever seen. And it had these glowing reflector silver eyes when it growled at us. And I'm like, okay, we were still in the process of getting out of the woods. It didn't chase us out into the open, but it stomped its foot, let us know it was there. And after that, we were pretty convinced, and we didn't spend as much time back in the woods after that.
I don't blame you, Glen. And that's one of the characteristics that has often been reported with the Mount Vernon monster, or is it being very dark black in color and having these pearly white shiny teeth, which is super odd because I don't hear that very often about the Bigfoots. So interesting that you say that.
Yeah, that was, and like I said, we were kids, but that was the two things I remember the most was, besides from its girth, its size, it was that it's almost like it had beautiful white teeth. And it could have just been our imagination, but the three of us that were out there, we kind of all agreed on the same thing, that whatever that thing was, it had a good dentist. So
Wow. I know. Well, I don't hear a whole lot about their teeth when people see their teeth, except for when people have mentioned, people who've had encounters with the Bigfoots mention it opening its mouth and screaming. I have two people that I know of that have actually watched them open their mouth and let out a scream before. And they actually mentioned that at least one of the guys said that it looked like it had sharp canines in its mouth. I don't know, but that's not what you hear about the Mount Vernon monster. I don't know about, it's almost like Chewbacca, with the canines. But like with Patty, from what I understand, she didn't have those in her mouth, but I don't know. Do you know what the typical tooth shape is?
No, I don't remember it having canines, like you would think like a dog would. It did resemble more human-esque type of teeth. I mean, young and we were so scared. I'm going to say I won't rule it out, but I don't think it did. I have heard the reports too. And a lot of times those with the canines say that it has more of a snout than, a human face, which could be the elusive dog man as well. So
it could, or it could be a type 3 Sasquatch too. That's one of the ongoing debates that we have is, what are these dogmen that we're seeing, or are they, oops, that's not the right one. Hold on, I was going to pull this up. Are the type 3s actually dogmen, or are they their own type of Bigfoot? And and that would be a more violent type of Bigfoot. That one down there at the bottom, it looks like a chimpanzee or something, like a yeah,
exactly.
So, well, it kind of leads us to, all right, well, what's the origin of these things? Are they related to primates? Are they their own different thing, their own species? And this Alabama White Thang that I want to talk about today with you, some people have described this thing as looking in, there's like 3 different categories as to what people describe. One of the categories would be a Bigfoot, a Sasquatch type creature that's white. Other people describe it as a lion. It looks like a lion, like this. But it's bipedal, like a lion. This is my AI picture that I made up. Okay, so that's kind of how some people describe it. Other people have talked about it looking like a lion, and then some people say it looks like a giant sloth, a white sloth. I know, right? There is, from what I can remember, there is some sort of a giant sloth. Okay, from many centuries ago that did roam around, but I mean those things would move slow if it was a sloth, and people say this thing moves really quickly.
It wouldn't be a sloth, I wouldn't think. But when I was up in Vermont here this last trip, I got to see a what is it called, a fisher cat, which is basically an oversized weasel. It's kin to the wolverines, if I understood from the locals correctly. And I didn't know what it was. So because I was asking the locals, I'm like, okay, wasn't the size of a mountain lion, but it wasn't the size of a tabby. And it had this long tail. And what was it? And they're like, oh, you saw a fisher cat. I'm like, oh, okay. And they're like, just be glad you were in your car because they're aggressive. I'm like, oh, well, that's good to know. Thanks for telling me.
Whoa. Yeah. Well, we got to watch out for anything that's lurking around the woods. And fortunately, being white and being the color that this thing is, it makes it a little more obvious so we can see it better, especially at night. Now, you had an experience where you believe you might have run into the Alabama White Thang. I think there may be more than one, personally.
I would think so, yeah.
I think so. But when did it happen? Was it at night or during the day? And tell me what happened.
No, it was late at night. It was on one of our expeditions, and Kristen, one of our teammates, and I were just wrapping up. We had been out doing some stuff in the woods, and she had just bought a thermal. Actually, I think it was a full color camera, and so we'd been playing with it and just kind of goofing off, not being serious or taking anything too serious. But at that point, we hadn't made it far out of camp because it was just the 2 of us that was up. And she was like, "Well, stay up for a few more minutes. I got to go hit the head. I want somebody to be up." I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. So I went to other side of the camp and found a tree, and kind of had my back to her. She was on the other side of camp, and as I was standing there, there's a stream that runs down along where we research, and I don't know if it was just a fog from the creek, because in the South, hot, especially in the South, it gets hot, and so you'll have some creek fog, steam, whatever you want to call it. And I started seeing this thing on the other side of it, and I was like, okay, am I seeing, what is that, a humanoid figure? What is it? And so I was trying to really focus on what it was, and then it moved. And I said, okay, well, it's not fog at this point. And when it turned, it was more facing me directly on the other side of the creek bank, where we research. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't like far away, but it wasn't real close either. It was probably, I don't know, what'd you guess, maybe 30, 40 yards from there, roughly. And so as I was adjusting my eyes and trying to figure out what in the hell it is I'm seeing, am I seeing something? Because like I said, it was in the fog. It had red eyes and a humanoid figure. And when it moved, there was no denying what it was, but I couldn't tell if it was controlling the fog or the steam or whatever you want to call that off the creek, or if that was just natural phenomena. And it kind of stared at me for a few minutes, and then it turned as I was yelling, Kristen, get your camera, get over here quick. And it was turning, and it was gone by the time she got there. There was a little, as you know, they'll leave a residual heat in the area against a tree. But so I was like, okay, well, I don't know if I saw anything or not. And so the next morning I was telling our team leader about it. And he said, have you ever heard of the Alabama White Thang? I said, no, I have not. He said, you just described exactly what that is. And I was like, okay, do tell. I will be Googling when I get home. And so he explained to me that in Alabama that they've seen this, tall humanoid Bigfoot-type cryptid in the past for many years. And I was like, well, that's weird. That must have been what I see. So
yeah, I think you did too. I think you probably did see the Alabama White Thang.
We had such activity in that area. It's highly probable.
Yeah, we do. Well, see, for the audience who's watching, Glenn and I are on 3 separate teams together, and we do research all over the South. Now, our locations are undisclosed locations, so we don't give our locations away, but we do have several hot spots across the South that do rival that of Skinwalker Ranch. We have a lot of really interesting activity at a lot of these spots, and it's really interesting, Glenn, because I got invited to an event that's happening in Alabama at one of the national parks coming up in a couple weeks. I think that our team's going to be doing some research that same weekend. One of our teams. So I'm going to try to swing by. But Alabama has a lot of activity when it comes to Bigfoot, and I think this event is going to be near Cheaha. I think Cheaha National Park, maybe, or State Park. I think it's a state park where they actually have Bigfoots all over that park. And I don't mean like actual Bigfoot. I'm sure they have actual Bigfoots, but they have like, if you go to their gift shop where you go sign in to like get a park pass, it's wall to wall Bigfoot paraphernalia or memorabilia. I don't know if paraphernalia is the right word.
It's funny you say that. They deny it, but yet they do that. So
yeah. Everything. I actually got a stuffed animal, like a plushie from there. They have magnets and keychains and T-shirts and hats and everything. Everything has Bigfoot on it. Stickers for your car. And then you go up to the top of the mountain there, and there's a carved Bigfoot out of a tree stump, a big one.
Oh,
so
nice.
Yeah, they pretty much, they roll with it. Okay. And I think that is really cool when an area is known to have Bigfoots in it. There's legends and lore, local sightings, and then the state parks embrace it instead of trying to cover it up. I like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
In Tennessee, where I go a lot, it doesn't exist until you talk to the rangers and the locals. And they're like, oh yeah, they're here. I go to my mom's in East Tennessee, and I'll be out late at night, and I've heard them, yell and stuff. And it's like, people know they're here. They just don't like to talk about it.
That's true. Yeah, a lot of people, they'll talk to you about it in private, but a lot of people don't want to talk about it publicly because they look crazy. They think they look crazy, but they don't. Okay, they don't. Aaron has an interesting comment here in the chat. It says, "I know of a sighting of a giant with white hair and beard in Russell County, Alabama, in 1877, but it talked to the witness, so I assumed that it was some sort of supernatural human, not Bigfoot related." Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I'm not sure where that Russell County is, but
Yeah.
if you think about it, it would make sense. There's got to be more than one of them. Like,
Yes.
exactly. There's got to be some sort of population.
Yeah.
And that was when I got older and started talking to a researcher up in Virginia. And this is before the internet and stuff like that. He said, well, we think that they come through here because there is a lot of wooded area in Northern Virginia, but we think they're passing through from one tribe to another to help the population survive. And that was a researcher told me that back in, the 80s. Cocaine Bear. I think that was Tennessee, wasn't it?
That was Tennessee. That's right. There's a movie about that, I think.
Yeah. It's a funny movie, too.
It's not, I know, it's really, I couldn't watch that whole movie. I thought it was terrible. That's just my opinion.
Kind of like Sharknado.
It was bad. Yeah.
Train wreck. You can stay and watch it.
I know. Well, it was going after kids, and I was like, "This isn't funny." Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're the paramedics.
You are a paramedic. That's right. Gosh, speaking of you being a paramedic, have you ever gotten any calls that involved a cryptid before, where somebody got attacked or anything?
Not a cryptid. I mean, I have had people have had animal attacks, and they didn't know what they were. A lot of times it was dogs or coyotes, or some people said a wolf one time. The most paranormal call I ever had, though, was here in Metro Atlanta. This lady, I'm pretty sure she was practicing voodoo. I'm not 100%. But when we walked into the house, there was the living room, and in the second floor was like a loft area open. And she was up there chanting something, staring at me, obviously not a fan of me being there because she knew I was going to take her away, or that was her thought. She literally at the top of the stairs, climbed the walls, literally 3 walls, and bounced down on the couch and stared at me. And I'm like, I'm out. This PD matter.
What?
I'm not dealing with this. It was the strangest thing I've ever seen. Me and my partner both were like, what? You got no treatment for that. And we were like, out of here. So she kept doing the same chant over and over while she was doing it methodically. She looked like a wild person. So thank you, Brown Dwarf. But yeah.
Yes. He may have an AKA Glen himself. Okay. So that is terrifying, Glen. I'm not sure why I didn't know that already. I don't think you've ever told me that story. Yeah,
that was one of the weirder calls that, and we had PD show up and the cops like, what do you want us to do about it? And I'm like, that's something you got to deal with, not me. That's a different level of hello, Susan, of I don't want to say craziness, but weirdness, strangeness.
Okay, I've only seen that. I've heard of that happening before, where people will scale the walls and walk it. It's very supernatural, and it's just like Aaron was saying. That account from 1877 of a large being that had a white beard and white hair. It could have been something different, or it could have been a Sasquatch that spoke English. I mean, we've heard them speak before, right? When it comes to like the Sierra Sounds with Ron Moorhead and R. Scott Nelson, figuring out that they have their own language and all that kind of stuff. They do have their own little language there, or a big language, but they also have a supernatural element to them too, right? So
can mimic like it is. You wouldn't believe. Well, that one time my son and I were up in the woods with it was Keith, A-Rod, myself. I'm trying to think who else was there. My cousin Lee. My son was with us, and Keith and my son had been in the same karate class, and they had nicknames or names for each other while they were beating each other up. And I had never heard this story, and so they were telling it back and forth at the campsite. That night, I heard my son calling out for Keith using that nickname. And don't ask me what it is. I can't remember. I'd have to ask Kyle. And I was a little freaked out because I knew that wasn't my son. And that was when we heard footsteps in the camp. And Craig Jackson, he was there, my other cousin. And there was a lot of activity in and around the campsite. That was probably the only time that I ever got scared, but it was probably more because my son was there.
Oh my gosh, yes. It almost has another energy. Like the environment gets a different energy when we have our kids there. Because I had my son with me one time when I went up to a location with one of my friends, Robbie with DA Ex Machina podcast. He's actually a researcher and does boots on the ground work. He's a law enforcement official. He's a police officer. Cool. And we went up to a place. We had my son with us, and we got surrounded by something. And I believe it was Bigfoot. He felt like it was something, and I agree. It could have been something different, like Dogman, or I don't know what it was. It just had a really ominous, horrible feeling about it. It wasn't the normal, typical Bigfoot in the environment kind of feeling. It felt like it was more scary, but it might have been because my son was there. Okay, so I understand what you mean.
And that was the only night that I ever got to experience the smell. I mean, and, I usually stay in a tent cot, and I thought, my God, do I smell this bad? It was almost to the point where I was gagging, and then the smell dissipated. So that's the only time I've experienced the smell, but phew, that was nasty.
Okay, well, that's really interesting that you say that too, because with the Alabama White Thang, they say that it smells really bad, and Andrew's asking, is the Alabama White Thang similar in behavior to the other types, I guess, of Bigfoot? Is there some other different thing that's other than what is white fur and cool name? Okay. Yeah, well, they just say that it has red eyes. Okay,
yeah,
red eyes, but a lot of Bigfoot have those.
Yeah, it had brilliant red eyes. That was the one thing, and it was white, furry humanoid figure. Yeah, maybe they're old Bigfoot, big feet. Maybe
so. Other than that, it seems very typical of a Bigfoot because they say it's 7 to 8 feet tall. It runs on all fours, but it walks on 2 legs as well. Mm-hmm. Has glowing red eyes. It howls, and it sounds like a woman screaming, which is very typical of Bigfoot. But it runs really quickly, really fast. They say it also lives in caves and drainage ditches, or it's seen in caves and drainage ditches, mostly around the Jones Valley area, Huntsville, Alabama, and the East Alabama area as well. Probably all over Alabama, from what I understand. But there's some other cases that have been documented of the Alabama White Thang. One of them is really eerie, Glenn, and it's from Winston County. It says a man, I think his name was George Norris. Okay, he fell asleep against a tree. I think it was a farmer, or he was out on his property. He fell asleep against a tree, and he woke up to a strange white creature laying beside him. It stared at him. He said it had long, white, thick hair and semi-cat-like in appearance. It didn't harm him, but it was kind of curious. It startled him, but it didn't hurt him. Okay, but he didn't describe it as looking more like a Bigfoot. He described it more like a feline type. And I had just done a show not too long ago where I encountered, when I was remote viewing, a feline extraterrestrial. Okay, and it kind of looked like that a little bit.
It's funny you say that. I had a lady on my show, and she had a up close and intimate experience with what she described as a cat lady, and it was a lot like you just showed there.
Really?
Yeah. She said that she has seen it, but it's only been a couple times a year, so she wondered if it was moving through, if it was in the woods, or what. Yeah, it's funny you say that about living in drainage ditches and things, because that's the same thing they said about the Mount Vernon monster. They said, if we're ordered to survive, it's got to be in all these weird places. So, who knows?
Yeah, well, and you hear about dogman sightings too, are often in drainage ditches on the side of the road. Mm-hmm. Okay, so maybe it's just a good place for them to duck for cover. away from, headlights of cars and things like that too. So it could be that.
They also probably there's got to be some portion of these creatures that is up more close into suburban areas, But
I agree with that. Yeah. Richard Cox. Hey, Richard says, Jessica, the one sighting I heard of was from a hunter just across the state line from Rome. Oh my gosh, that's Rome, Georgia. That's not too far from where I live. Along the Etowah River where DeKalb and Cherokee, Alabama border. Okay. Very interesting, because that is also where we get a lot of dogman sightings as well over there. So a super high strangeness area. Okay, in that area. So that's worth looking into a little bit more too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you for that. Yeah. And I actually just went on a dogman hunt in Alabama as well. And I don't know if I've really talked to you about this yet, Glenn. I went with it. I have teamed up with another team as well, Cryptid Warfare operators. And we had one of the guys on the team had a potential dogman encounter with his family out in a national park out there, national forest. So we went. A lot of Bigfoot activity. Okay, I'm just going to say this area is ripe with Bigfoot activity. I don't know. I think it's just, maybe it's because it's so wooded. It's just the environment. It's a wonderful place for Bigfoots and dogmen to hang out, I guess.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What part of Tennessee?
Yeah, it's not too far from Tennessee, actually. It's North Alabama, too. And I've been to Tennessee doing some research, too.
Okay.
Lately.
If you get up in East Tennessee, let me know.
Well, I was just there 2 weeks ago. I was just in East Tennessee. Yeah, the East Tennessee or East Tennessee Squatch Out, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I was out there. Yeah. That was fun. Shout out to Manimal Research. Okay. And everybody else. Those are some of the people that I might be going to the Alabama Bigfoot thing with in a couple weeks. Yeah. Man, my life has become Bigfoot centric. Let's just say.
Well, I mean, it takes over in a way, because you want to know, what is this thing? What have I seen?
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of it kind of sets you on your trajectory with Bigfoot, being a kid and encountering that Mount Vernon monster, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That's what, because well, I doubt you remember this, but they used to have in the school libraries little reels that you could watch. And I saw the Patty film there. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, maybe that's what's in our woods. And it did. It set me off. Of course, you get busy, life, have kids, whatever. And it wasn't until I revisited it once I wanted to, as an adult, get back out in the woods, because I hadn't been out in the. I took my kids camping and stuff, but nothing like that. I had never been on an expedition, and that's how we met, actually. So.
Oh yeah.
Headless goats in Atlanta.
I know. I was just reading that. That's actually when we were talking about the lady that was scaling the walls. I still can't believe that you experienced that. I mean, I can believe it, but I'm just saying that's wild. Wild. Aaron says, so much voodoo Santeria in Atlanta. The number of headless goats found in the Chattahoochee is terrifying. That's true. Oh, I hate that. Yeah.
Yes, there is a lot of voodoo in Atlanta. I will say that is correct.
There is. And the fact that you encountered a woman who scaled the wall. Now, did she literally walked up the wall, or was she like, was she like Spider-Man?
Spider-Man, yeah. Do you remember the science fiction show Skitters? I think it was called. And it literally, she literally was like, she was going across the wall. She jumped up on the wall there at the top of the stairs and went around the three walls and then pounced down on the couch from about, 6-8 feet above, the ceiling area. It was a big open vaulted ceiling, but yeah. And she bounced down on the couch, kind of in what everybody likes to refer to the Iron Man position, where they land with the one arm down. And I was like, well, she's not going to my ambulance. I'm out.
I mean,
no drugs for that. Nor do I care to find any.
Oh my gosh. I guess you'd have to like strap her down or something. I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know. I would not. You are a very brave human to have a job like that. Okay, all of our shout out to all the law enforcement officials, all the first responders. You guys have to deal with some weird stuff.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, you do.
And she could have just been on drugs, but with the chant and just being in that area, me and my partner talked about it. Thought that had to have some type of voodoo or something. It was not normal. It definitely was not normal. PD didn't even want to be there, but I left. I was like, "It's your problem, not mine. I'm out."
Oh God. Well, there's a show, a documentary with Ghost Adventures. It was called The Demon House, I think, and there's a true account of. I mean, they had like child services was there, and some of the police officers were there that testified that a little boy, he had gotten, I guess he was possessed or something, and he climbed up the wall backwards in the hospital, and the hospital staff ran out like they were terrified, but they all watched this little boy scale a wall like that.
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, I've transported people who say they were things, vampires, or they could turn into werewolves and stuff. Luckily, none of them ever did or came after me, but you start taking things for granted. I actually had a paramedic on one of my shows the other night, and he's made a career now out of writing science fiction about some of the things he's experienced up in the Maryland area. And he was like, people just don't realize what's in their neighborhood, what's around them. And that is so true. We get lulled into our own little lifestyle, go to work, come home, cook dinner, make sure the kids got their bath, go to bed, get up, wash, rinse, repeat. We don't pay attention to what's around us. So many people are guilty of that, myself included. And so there could be things living closer to us than even we realize.
Yes, absolutely. And I don't know where I put them. I have some 3D glasses that Maureen sent me. Maureen and Gus, they're here somewhere, right here. Just can't reach them. Where I've learned that if we put the two sets of 3D glasses together, you staple them together, you can see things that we normally can't see with our eyes, like UFOs and things like that around us too. So it's not just in the 3D, it's in like the other dimensions as well. And Walter, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Glenn. Sorry, my dog is whining, y'all. I am so sorry. I'm going to take her out as soon as the show's over. Walter, thank you for that super sticker. That is very sweet of you. Very kind. Thank you. But yeah, the magic is real. Okay, there's something, the voodoo, like we talk about on the show pretty often, Glenn. Even if those of us like that don't believe in it, it doesn't matter. The people who do believe in it do believe in it.
It's not my job to convince somebody that these things exist or these things have happened. I mean, I'm not going to go out and be like a national spokesperson and say they're eating the cats and they're eating the pets, but I will tell you that there is a high strangeness that surrounds most major cities that people just don't pay attention to.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's just cool to be aware of this stuff, y'all. Okay, everybody that's watching, everybody that's listening, just be aware of it. Because this stuff does happen, and goodness gracious, it's cool. I always learn something new every time I talk to you, Glenn. I'm always learning something.
Well, when you go down the rabbit hole, it kind of it gets a little weird.
It does.
I think that's another thing. Once you open yourself up to it, I don't know if you're more, like I was saying, aware of it, or if the phenomena is aware of you. Yeah, that's something that Ron Moorhead talks about extensively in the book Quantum Bigfoot. Once you become aware, it's there. You just didn't realize it was always there.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's true. Mike Prine says, I held a blank adapted M16 up to the ear of a big white one, sound asleep in the tall grass, sunning itself until it growled at me. Now, are you talking about a Bigfoot? Oh my gosh.
Wow, he got that close while it was asleep. Usually they have watchers.
Yeah, that's wild. Well, Barry Littleton talks about, we talked about this on Monday, actually, about sleeping Bigfoots and how, I forgot, he talks about the dream state and how they travel in their dream states and stuff. And Glenn, this is a perfect time to bring this up because you're here. And, a lot of times when you and I and our team were out in the field, we will have something happen like in base camp, and then we all just turn in for the night and go to sleep, right?
Yep.
Relax. And so, yeah, and it's just weird, right? It's almost like we're kind of put to sleep or something.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah. One of the experiences I had in the North Georgia mountains, kind of Northwest Georgia mountains, one of my first real experiences, I felt like I was zapped. I was numb from head to toe. I knew it was out there, but I was like, whatever. I just rolled over and grabbed my pillow and went back to sleep. Didn't think it's like there's this large creature outside that potentially now I've learned could have zapped me. And then I'm like, I'm just going to go to sleep. It is so strange. But and it was the same thing. My son, he wasn't a believer. And he said that night he thought something that was around him and he was in a hammock. And he was like, I just rolled over and went to sleep. I was like, it happens.
It does. You know what? I was telling Barry, I had this epiphany. I was like, well, maybe, just maybe, we go to sleep. We go off and I don't think any of us really slept a couple of those times. Okay. Because there was activity going on outside, especially that one time when something screamed in our camp. I don't remember if you were there for that one. Something screamed in our camp behind our tents. And were you there? Okay. You were there for that. And it was really concerning. That was very loud. And then we got pelted with acorns and rocks all night. Okay. Yep. And that was messed up, right?
I was with another one of our teammates, me and him, on a 4-wheeling expedition where we weren't looking for Bigfoot. We were just out 4-wheeling and we were way up the top of Trey Mountain in North Georgia. And we went to sleep. Things started pelting us. And he's like, you hearing this? I'm like, yep. He's like, what do we do? And I'm like, wait till they get closer. And it continued for a while. It was like just a little gravel. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And And you said the Thin Blue Line. It's actually the Thin Line rock station.
The Thin Line. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. No,
I just added that.
Yeah, that's okay. I often tell myself or call myself the boss jock on there just for fun, just because it's different than what we normally do. Where I have 3 shows a week right now, where we talk about crazy stuff sometimes, or we just do funny stuff. This time I get to play music and I get to pick a lot of music. So it's a lot of 80s stuff. I'm old.
I know. I love it. I've tuned in before and it's good music. Yeah. It's fun hearing you on there, actually. Like, I know that guy.
Yeah. It's funny because I'll get people send me voicemails and for requests and stuff. And I'm like, how did I start this out? I wanted to just tell people about my experiences and now I'm spinning records.
Well, you know what? You have a fusion. Okay. It's like a fusion. You can talk Bigfoot and also your experiences as a, firefighter and a paramedic and all the other stuff you do. I want you to start talking. I'm not saying like I want you to, like you need to do this. Why don't you kind of talk about, or are you able to talk about your experiences like that woman walking up the wall on your show?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do a Friday night. No, we do. Sometimes we do a Friday night public safety show where I'll invite other people in and we will talk about, we call them war stories. And a lot of times, if you don't release too much information, like I can't tell you I don't even remember where the woman lived, but, so you don't release too much information, you're okay. So, but yeah, we call them war stories. And a lot of times if you get us together, cops, paramedics, firemen together, we'll start talking about the craziness and the weird stuff. And it's therapy.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I know my sister was worked at the sheriff's department for a while, and it's always really great to have contacts in law enforcement when it comes to the cryptid research and for the reports. And there was a time where I was being told, it was kind of passed down the line with the deputies there, and letting me know like when some of these sightings were happening with like dogmen sightings and werewolf sightings in our county. And even Bigfoot as well. And, I was actually I had this epiphany. I'm having a lot of epiphanies apparently, but I woke up, I think I dreamed it last night. I was having a dream. Like I got the message that I need to do like a Bigfoot town hall in my hometown. Okay. Like where I live, and maybe invite some of the law enforcement there and stuff. I don't know. I mean, anybody that's had any kind of experiences, because I think of all people in this county, I think law enforcement would have a lot of stories about Bigfoot sightings, I would think.
Oh yeah. I remember as a kid, one of the stories about the Mount Vernon monster was a police officer came up behind the country club and saw this person digging through trash cans in the dumpster, and he thought, all right, I got this bum. It picked him up and tossed him head first into the dumpster. So there are officers that have had experiences. So
wow. Yeah, I have no doubt. I've heard some wild stories, and it's not just from the officers, but the dispatchers, of course, too. They're the first in line to get those. And I was always really careful not to ever talk about that when my sister was working there, because, and that's why I was asking you, is it okay for you to even talk about that publicly? Because I never wanted to get her in trouble. Okay. Cause she would, but I don't know if she would have gotten in trouble for telling me that kind of stuff, but she'd let me know occasionally if they had a like a car hit what they said was a gigantic dog, but then it got up on two legs and it ran off after they hit it.
Yeah.
And that was a mile from my house, Glenn. That was a mile from my house back then.
We ran a call once where there was no skid marks and there was a car absolutely totaled in the middle of the street. And this is in East Tennessee. And we were like, what the hell did it hit? And it was like a sudden stop. There was no skid marks up to it. And like, what did it hit? It's not here, whatever it is now. 4K. I have noticed from a lot of my people, there is strange activity always around military bases. And Fort Belvoir is right there just outside of Washington, D.C.
Oh yeah, you and I have actually talked about that before with the Bigfoot sightings and the Dogman sightings near military bases. What is up with that?
Well, I researched back into the history of Fort Belvoir. Of course, both my grandparents worked there, and jobs with security levels I'll never obtain. And there was at one point in time they had a name for Belvoir. It was like Area 55 or something like that. So and if you look at Project Blue Book, it started out of Fort Belvoir. And that's the other thing. Is there an ET connection to all of this? Which is one thing that, you and I have discussed multiple times. Then people really think you're nuts when you bring that up. They can believe there's this big monkey roaming the woods, but they can't believe in our galaxy of millions of stars that there's another life form. It's like, thank you, Mountain Dew shirt. I love it. Yeah. And it's volunteer orange for Tennessee. So it's a 2-for-1.
Oh, yeah. I love your shirt. I was complimenting your shirt before we even went live today. I love that shirt. I need one of those. But yeah, okay. So East Tennessee is actually also where they have the Oak Ridge Labs too, which is, I'm going to say military base too, kind of, or no, I mean, it's government funded, I would assume. I don't know.
Like DOE, Department of Energy. But it does have a military component to it. So, well, if you remember back historically, that's where the first big boom was created. So, in secret.
That would be an atomic bomb, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and they say that there's an ion collider down there now that works with CERN with that Alice project. Yeah, a Large Hadron Collider, maybe, like CERN.
I heard that as well. There is a lot of high strangeness that goes on along the river that borders Oak Ridge as well. So, and some people have even wondered, were they trying to create a super soldier program and it got out of hand? Was it like exactly some kind of genetic experimentation? So, and we are learning that that animals will adapt and overcome. I mean, if you look at Florida, the animals have taken over in their environment that weren't native. And in fact, I just read a study that said the huge constrictors and snakes, they are going to be moving so far north, it'll probably be at the base of the Smoky Mountains. It'll be in our neighborhood by like 2026.
Oh God, please don't tell me that. That's horrible.
I know. It's funny. My mom says, I'll never move to Florida because of the snakes. And I'm like, yeah, well, you might not have to. They may come to you. But it's natural. They have a hunting area. They've got to grow. They've got to increase their population. So they will move outwards, especially the construction. Yeah.
Oh my God. I wish you had not told me that. But I used to have a pet snake. All right. I had a pet snake for years. And but it just grew to be way too big. and I gave it to my brother. Okay, and we ended. Oh, I don't even want to talk about it. Okay, so there's snakes. Okay,
Not
the
a snake
snakes
fan. I'm
lived.
with you.
Yeah, the snake lived. It's probably still alive today, but it got out of control. I mean, it's once you get a snake like a boa constrictor, they just get so big. Like, what do you do with it once it gets really big? It's just not a good pet, in my opinion. That's just me.
No,
But
no.
because I have
Well,
one.
I've had reports of people down in South Georgia talking about rattlers. Once they get beyond 10 feet, they're 10 foot in length. They're at the top of the food chain. They don't rattle anymore. So those are the ones you have to watch out for.
Yeah, those
I'm
are.
like, good to know. Good to know.
Yeah. Well, we're always on the lookout when we're out in the field, especially for copperheads. Right now, there's a lot of snakes out. I would assume right this minute. It's not too hot. It's not too cold at the moment, and so I just got to be aware of snakes and hopefully not boas and anacondas in the near future.
Yeah. Actually, my time out in the woods, I've only had, well, as a firefighter, I've had experiences out in the woods with them, but researching only one experience that was iffy. We were hiking, and one of our team leaders actually almost stepped on a timber rattler, and he heard the rattle at the last second and backed up. And that's it. We were like, wait a minute, hold on, we got to see this thing. And we went and we're like, oh, that's a pretty big little snake. We're out of here. Yeah, not a snake fan. No, not a snake fan.
No, I'm not a huge fan of snakes. I don't mind them as long as they're not poisonous. But I have definitely stepped over a snake or two out in the field, and it's always jarring. Okay, when you realize that you got a snake right there in front of you, it doesn't matter if it's poisonous or not. I don't care what anybody says. It's one of those moments where you lose your breath for a second. You're like,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, well, when I moved to East Tennessee, I had never heard of timber rattlers. They weren't, at that time, they weren't common in Northern Virginia. And we were going up the top of a mountain fighting a brush fire. And one of the guys beside me, he says, well, I'm glad to see the city boy isn't afraid of them pets. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, you just passed over a whole den of timber rattlers. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing here.
Oh my God. Timber rattlers are so dangerous. We have those out at the farm. And yeah, my little brother and my little sister stepped over one day. And that, yeah, it became open season for rattlesnakes after that happened over with my family. So, but anyways, yeah, it's just one of those things you got to look out for, especially when you're in the woods a lot, like you and I are. And I do have quite a few trips planned to the woods here in the near future too. So y'all just be aware of those.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, Jason wanted to know where he could search for information on that wall walking woman. Well, you probably wouldn't have that one that you experienced documented anywhere. But the wall walking child that I referred to is on the movie. It's called Demon House, and it's a Ghost Adventures crew kind of production. Okay. So that's where you will find that. Go look it up. It's on Netflix, I think, or some Travel Channel or something.
In my 35 years in the field, that's the only time I'd ever seen it. So
I hope you never see that again.
No, like I said, I think there was some kind of, I'm just going to throw it out there, voodoo, but it could have been anything. You never know. There is black magic. So
yeah, well, and somebody in the chat had mentioned that we're going to be seeing a lot more weird stuff like this in these days, because like I like to say, the veil is thinned or it's gone. Okay, like between one dimension and the next, it's almost like we're getting more reports of cryptids. We're seeing a lot of strange things in the world that we probably wouldn't have paid attention to a long time ago. I don't know.
I mean,
but there could be.
Has admitted there's UFOs now.
Yeah. Yes.
And back in the day, that was, my grandparents and stuff. They're like, that's crazy. What's wrong with you? Don't talk that way. Of course, then I find out they probably worked with on these projects, but it's like, huh.
Oh yeah. Well, and then we got like those hadron colliders and stuff are getting turned on, and like in East Tennessee, okay, and in CERN and wherever else we have them. Who knows? They may be opening up portals and things are ripping through dimensions and stuff right now.
I was just talking to somebody up in the DC area, and we always suspected it, kind of knew it, that there was tunnels all under, not East Tennessee, Northern Virginia. but they're now starting to be more open about there's tunnels connecting most major cities. So yeah, you're right. It's either that people aren't keeping secrets as well, or it's not being as closely guarded, or finally people are just like, okay, we're going to talk about this. This is real.
Yeah. Well, we talk about it here on this channel a lot. We talk about all this stuff. I do think, and I like bringing people like you on, of course, who have had firsthand experience with a lot of these cryptids and things that are going on. And it's just a added bonus that you talked about the lady walking up the wall and scaling the walls. That is so interesting to me. I know it's terrifying, but it happens. And and I've seen videos online of like witches, climbing walls, and it looks like it's CGI, but what if it's not?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if this woman had grabbed a broom and rode in it, I would have probably believed it at that moment.
Oh my gosh. Well, I wish that you had it on video or something. That would have been cool. But
yeah, that would have been awesome. I don't even think PD had body cameras back then, but yeah. Well, and it's the other thing. How much are they hiding on body cams? Because I know we see stuff. Skinwalker encounter Fort Campbell during routine
patrol. Yeah, Ron says there was a S Walker encounter at Fort Campbell during the routine night patrol around the perimeter wall. Ooh, that's terrifying.
Yeah. Well, like I said, imagine now we have. Well, you can't go almost anywhere and not have a camera now. I mean, just regular. So with the police officers and the military and people out in the woods wearing body cams, it's going to start appearing. Now, a lot of it gets hushed down in police departments, I know for a fact, but it's there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's just like that gentleman that I had that contacted me at the state park in Georgia over near where Kristen lives, not too far from there. It's he said that they had been having reports, like 9 reports of Bigfoots over there, but like everybody was making fun of him for having to write up these reports, everybody he worked with and stuff. And it just, the whole story, when we went out there, Keith and Craig and Bruce and I went out there to go scout it out for a weekend. And it was just odd because it's like the stories were, it added up what he was telling us, but then some other stuff, it just seemed like there was a cover up going on of some sort. When we contacted like the coroner's office from a suspicious death that could have been related to a Bigfoot and all this stuff, it's just weird how things potentially get covered up.
Yeah, the dogman attack in East Tennessee that people have said for years was a dogman, and they're like, no, it was just a regular dog. Mm-hmm. I think that report's out on the internet now, and you can read that. That one was pretty graphic.
Are you talking about the Amber Miller story and Tony Aarons?
Yeah. Northeast Tennessee.
Yeah, that was in Cocke County, and that happened. They had 2 attacks. Those 2 attacks happened within a month of each other, I think, about a month. And that was one of my remote viewing targets, right? I remote viewed both of those attacks.
Oh, wow. No, I did not.
Yeah. And actually, as a matter of fact, it's very tragic, but I was given those as targets, and I saw what I kept saying zombie bear during that target. I was like, a zombie bear? That doesn't make any sense. So it wasn't a pack of wild dogs. I don't know.
It didn't, from everything I've read, they'd have to be a lot of dogs and very large dogs.
Yeah. Did you see the medical examiner's report for that?
Yes.
For the autopsy? You did? What did you think? Because she had lost like a huge percentage of her flesh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it was one of her arms was detached, and it was a large portion of the flesh. I'm pretty sure it was one of her upper extremities was detached, and
that's horrible.
It was pretty graphic, and like I said, if it was dogs, it would have had to have been very large dogs and multiple dogs, and you would have thought that somebody would have seen this going on.
You'd think it, but you said that you had dealt with animal attacks before. Did this line up with a typical dog attack?
Well, no, when I was attacked by a dog, it was totally quiet. It was totally quiet. She came up from behind me and got me. It wasn't like you picture on the the TV shows or the cartoons or wherever where they're slobbering and growling and barking. No, when they want to get you, they're in hunting mode and they're silent but deadly. And yeah, she got me before I even knew I was got. She had, I think she was on her third bite by the time I realized I was bitten.
Oh my gosh. I am so sorry that happened to you. That's horrible.
It's with 3 surgery laters and a lot of therapy, it's gotten much better.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm glad that you're healing from that. But you know, I love dogs. Okay. I love dogs. I have been bitten by a dog. When I was a kid, I got bit by a Cocker Spaniel. Okay. I'll never forget. I think that I went to pet it and its mouth got caught on my ring and it cut my hand. But anyways, that happened. And, but we love dogs. We don't want to think that they're going to turn on us and attack us, but they do attack them. It can be brutal and vicious. Mm-hmm. Right. So, yeah. But these attacks were more than that, I think. It wasn't a pack. They said a pack of wild dogs, but how many packs of wild dogs are really running around? You know what I mean? Like attacking and tearing people apart.
Yeah.
That's my question. Yeah.
The closest I could think of, maybe wolves. Coyotes wouldn't have done that much damage. Mine was a pit bull. So that was the thing. I grew up around, hey, Daryl, I grew up around animals. My uncle was a veterinarian, and I learned a lot about animals growing up. And so I never had a fear, I still don't. So, but now I know what to do.
Oh gosh. Daryl is in the chat. What's up, Daryl? Daryl's another one of our teammates out here. Daryl's awesome. What's up, Daryl? Okay, Mike said that one held me down within arm's reach for over a minute, broad daylight on Fort Bragg. That's up in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. Whoa. I had an uncle that was stationed up there for a long time. But I hear about Bigfoot sightings around Fort Bragg pretty often. Have you heard that?
I've interviewed, Fort Bragg's up there, one of our areas where we researched. And I've interviewed soldiers that went through SF training. And apparently they get like dropped off in the middle of the woods and, one of their, I guess, to graduate, find your way to point X, do this, and then get back to point Z. And they told me that there are things in the woods at Fort Bragg that are very terrifying, even to the special forces guys. And they're told, don't talk about them, leave them alone.
Interesting, because we personally, at least one person, I think Chris Harper actually had an encounter with a Bigfoot. It was either at Fort Benning or at Fort Stewart. I can't remember. But it happens more often than you think at these Army bases out in the middle of the woods and stuff.
Yeah. My friend, he was one of my instructors in paramedic school, and he was like, we were told, don't talk about that stuff. Yeah. I don't think I've run a coyote attack. But I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. I've had raccoons attack, which you don't think about. They're just big trash pandas. But if they're put in a corner, they are not friendly animals either. So,
yeah. Most animals will attack if they're put in a bad predicament. Okay. Bears too. Someone in the chat actually earlier had said that he'd heard that the Alabama White Thang could be a white bear too. And so I just wanted to make a note of that, because I didn't acknowledge that comment out loud when I saw it earlier, and I meant to do that. So we also had the possibility of a white bear being out there too, but I don't know. I haven't seen a whole lot of white bears, but I hadn't seen a lot of white Bigfoot either. Okay, so
this is my first
white spots. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've seen white deer out in the woods. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, genetically, could it happen? Yes.
It could. And we do have white lions as well, too.
Yeah. And, a lot of the animal reports of kitties in the mountains of the Georgia and Tennessee mountains have been that they were light colored, or of course, then they will tell you it doesn't exist either. So DNR will. Yeah.
All right.
Well, he is absolutely correct. There is a field operating manual about that.
Yes, Gerald says it was said the U.S. military position on Bigfoot is that it does not exist. However, if you encounter one, do not interact with it. And we've talked about it here on the channel before that there is a map that was put out by the U.S. Air Force, I believe, that says that Sasquatch is a dangerous animal. Okay, so it is listed on there.
Yep. Yeah, it's listed. And is that for fun, just to mess with you? You're already down and trapped in the woods behind enemy lines. Now you got to worry about Bigfoot too. Is that something just to? I don't know. Well,
Right.
out west, when I've traveled out
so.
west, I've talked to people and they talk about it like it's a dog. I mean, like it's just a normal thing. You know, up in Grants Pass in Oregon and far up Southern California. It's a thing. They just, it exists.
Yeah.
Just leave it alone.
Exactly. Well, but it is recognized. And so it's kind of like, well, if it's recognized, this is real. And I've seen the map. Okay. Does that take it off the list of being a cryptid then? Okay. Because it's being acknowledged, right?
It's true. Well, you know, if you remember, we had somebody in one of our teams that my first view at first was, you know, we've got to figure out what this animal is. The only way to figure it out is we need a body. And my teammate at the time changed my opinion on it entirely, because he said, if you get them one body, they're not going to be happy. Then they're going to want a female or a male. Then they're going to want a baby. Then they're going to want a juvenile. Then they want to want one that's pregnant. He says it'll never stop. He said, so would be better to leave these creatures alone, and that they probably already know about them. Hey,
they totally know about them. That's my opinion. I think they do. And if they're on these maps and they're being recognized, I mean, there's a chance that there's some sort of cryptid breeding program going on too. I mean, and they say that they're used, I mean, if they're being seen on these military bases and stuff, there's no doubt that I'm going to say government does not know about these things. Okay. 100%.
Well, if you really get into the rabbit hole and go down it, there's chains of islands all along our coast.
Okay, I'm gonna take you out.
That the military, our private contractors, basically own, and it's a do not fly over, do not go into zone. What goes on out there?
That's right. That's right. So there's much to ponder on all of this. Absolutely. For sure. And this has been a fantastic time with you, Glenn, for sure. And I mean, the fact that you've encountered the Alabama White Thang and the Mount Vernon Monster, that's amazing. And that's why it's really fun going out in the field with you too. We bring the high strangeness with us. I tell everybody that. It's not just where we're going, it's who's with us a lot of times. And Daryl's included in that too. And any of my other teammates in here today in the chat that I missed, we go out there, we bring the high strangeness with us, I think. And that's what gives us all these experiences. Right? Absolutely. That's what I think.
I sent you in Messenger a picture of the coin I designed after seeing the Mount Vernon Monster. And that's the closest I could come to it. So I have those for sale too, if anybody wants one. But that was the closest my rendition could come to what it was I put on the coin. I'm no artist by far, but.
All right, I'm looking for it. Did you put it in StreamYard chat or did you put it on Facebook?
Facebook Messenger.
Facebook. Okay, I'm gonna try to pull it up before we go today, and see if I can't find that. Yeah. Well, Glenn, this is amazing. Will you tell everybody about your podcast and your radio show and all that stuff while I'm trying to pull this up and see if we can go follow you?
Well, if they'll on YouTube right here, search for the Sport Cat shows. You'll find Wednesday night we do a paramedic. It's just Sport Cat on YouTube. We do a paranormal guys, which the opinion is one person believes in it, the other doesn't. A lot of times on Wednesday nights, we interview anyone from athletes to normal people to entertainers. This week I have 2 authors on that are talking about magic. It's Wednesday night at 9 p.m. And then Friday nights, we occasionally do a public safety show where it's us talking about, war stories or just public safety stuff. And then on the Thin Line Rock Station, Tuesdays and Thursdays from noon to 3. And then I do Flashback Fridays, which is more my 80s stuff. And then Saturdays, I decided that we kind of just let our hair down. It's an FM show where we have crazy people come in the chat, and we just talk about pop culture, anything from comic books to movies to what's going on in Hollywood, and just have fun. That's just a fun show. So those are my show. Oh, and right now we're covering the reality TV show Big Brother, which we've got several devoted people that follow that. So, but yeah, go over to YouTube, find the Sport Cat shows, and like, follow, share. Please subscribe. I need some subscriptions. I'm still trying to get monetized, so I'm working on that. And I'm also working on a book. If I can ever. Writing is not easy for me, so speaking isn't either, but writing is hard for me because it's hard to put down my thoughts into the way I envision them. So I've got about 100 million words that I haven't put into a complete thing yet. So I'm working on that. I'm working with some other authors. So one day in the future, I hope to have a book out.
Oh my gosh. Well, when you get that book out, you come back. Well, come back anytime and hang out with us. This has been awesome. It is Glen Sport Cat Jackson, you guys, on there. And I do have your coins here. So where can people find these coins? How can they get them?
They can message me on any of the social media at SportCat on Twitter, SportCat Medic on other places, Yahoo. SportCat Medic at Yahoo is my email address. Or you can find me on Facebook, SportCat Medic. And that's kind of it's a horrible picture, but that's kind of what I saw. It glows in the dark, and I made that because people were asking me to describe it, and I thought, well, you know what? I'm into challenge coins because I'm into public safety, so I created that. So it's all representation there. That's the Mount Vernon mansion behind it. It's surrounded in barbed wire, and it's my high school's colors. So. And George Washington is actually Patty. I put George Washington's head on Patty in the footprint. So,
oh, I love that. Oh my gosh, these are really cool. The challenge coins. If you guys want to get some of those, go hit up Glen for those. Okay, and super cool. They glow in the dark. Okay, glow in the dark. Super awesome. Okay, well, I obviously have to go let my dog out, y'all. She's been whining and barking this whole show. That is so not like her. She hasn't been feeling good lately. Okay, so, but this has been amazing. We covered the Alabama White Thang today, y'all, and I hope everybody enjoyed this. If you've had your own encounter with the Alabama White Thang, y'all drop it in the comments after the show. Let me know. Send me a message or email or something. Let's compile some of these stories and stuff, and we'll kind of figure out where they're being spotted at. Okay.
Let me know when we do a ghost show. I'll tell you about my haunted house growing up.
Okay.
Not much. So.
Yeah. You need to write about that lady scaling the wall too, Glen. Okay. Be sure you do that.
Oh
okay.
Yeah. There's war stories in there. So absolutely.
Okay.
We call them war stories because during your career, it is almost like you've been, by the time you're done with your career, you've been in battle. So that's why we call them war stories. So.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, well, everybody, please go tune in to the Thin Line Rock Station. And you can find that online, right, Glen? Because that's where I found it, online, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Okay, and perfect. Okay, Glen, well, have a wonderful day. And thanks again for being here. Y'all go tune in, find Glen Sport Cat Jackson on YouTube and go subscribe. You guys come back and see me tomorrow night too. I'll be here with a remote viewing show. I have several targets to choose from. I actually did remote view the Faultville Metal Man too, by the way, which is from this area, Glen, where the Alabama White Thang has been spotted. This is an old target that I did a while back. I may cover this tomorrow, but I don't know. There's not enough information. It's not like that exciting to me. But we'll see. Maybe we'll talk about it.
You should remote view the Mount Vernon Monster. We can finally see if there's a military aspect of it.
Oh, that would be amazing. Maybe I'll get that as a target one day, and we can do that. Would you come on? You'll have to come on with me if we do that one for sure.
I would love to. I need to work on my remote viewing skills. It's
okay.
It's something you have to practice.
I know. Well, you've been trained just as much as I have in remote viewing, so we'll have to get you on a target too. Okay, I'll send you one sometime, and we'll do that. Okay, so I don't think it's going to be the Falkman. That came out weird. Falkman Metal Man. Falkville Metal Man. I guess that's how you say it. Tomorrow night. But we're going to have a really good target. So y'all come back 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night. All right. All right, Glenn. Well, have a wonderful day. You guys be safe out there. And keep your head on a swivel, everybody. Because we're living in weird times if we got women scaling the walls and trying to jump on Glenn. Okay. All right, Glenn. Y'all have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, y'all.